Hey, this is Tracy Lewis with Stuff and Things, and welcome to Winter is Coming Wednesday, episode 25, where I am continuing on with the craft note cards. I did half of them last week in a Thanksgiving theme, and this week is Christmas. So the packaging that we were provided, again, this was one of the many projects that I did in October with the North Carolina Demos quarterly meeting crew of folks. And the embossed gift bag is right here, and we made a tag with 3 different strips, Poppy Parade, Evening Evergreen, and Basic White, with the linen braided trim with a little bit of silver going through it. The paper for this week's project is Santa Express, and it is a combination of colors. I used the non-Santa theme. They actually cut all of the different pieces of cardstock and DSP for us, and only one of them had ho 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 on it. Though the other side of these did have the Santa scenes, but they weren't cut to use the Santa scenes. They were cut to use the backside, which come in a variety of patterns using shaded spruce. Here's the ho 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 one, which I actually gave to Libby. Being we've never had kids, so I'm not a Santa person personally, so I have replaced that with one of these other patterns. Now, all of these have ho ho ho. Okay, so we use this one, we use the fa la 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 la, and not the blue with the snowflakes. So, provided with this project was, I am looking for them now. They have slipped away. Oh, I see them. Okay, so we were to use the iridescent pearls, but there's also iridescent gemstones and iridescent opal or opal dots, and they're all an iridescent looking pink and green accents. So any of these will work. What we were provided was a piece of cardstock that had been die cut, and the die cut was to be used as a layer. This is the most efficient way I have found to use the solid colored cardstock, is to cut as many of the die cuts out of the mat that I am going to have. And so I was very pleased to see that done. And then in the stylish shapes circle was for the sentiment. And the sentiment that they had wanted to use was sentiments from Brightest Glow, but I chose one from the Joyful Flurry, the snowflake one that says Joyful Wishes, and then the 'Tis the Season, which is from Brightest Glow. So we have enough pieces here to make 10 cards. I went ahead and pre-combined the colors, making sure I alternated green and red. If you want to do green on green or red on red, that's totally up to you. So these have all been separated out. I replaced the ho 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 with a second white with the little dots. I have a tip. Last week I gave a tip on using the Stamparatus for placement, where I stamped on a piece of paper and then drew the outline of the pieces that we were given to stamp on. So today's tip is a little different. It again uses the Stamparatus. As I said, I don't use it a lot in my videos, but I do use it a lot. I have, in fact, when I first started stamping, here's a little history about my crafting experience. So years ago, my hands have always been bad, and I was a very poor stamper. So I got frustrated, and this was way back in the early 90s. I made very basic cards using Marvy markers, just would color the stamp multiple colors, stamp, 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 done. And I only had like one birthday stamp, one Christmas stamp. You know, that was it. So people got the same card year over year over year. Then came along Stampin' Up, and I was ready to find a little bit different hobby because I had been making jewelry and my hands were bad. So I decided to give stamping another try. At the time, there were tools like the Stamparatus, and if it weren't for those tools, the ability to perfect the stamping placement the first time and to do repeat stamping if you didn't ink it just right, I don't think I would have become a paper crafter. So I am very, very grateful for these type of alignment tools. So this week's tip is taking a piece of cardstock. It works very well if you're going to die cut. You take your die cut, which is the stylish shape circle, and you cut it out of a piece of paper, but you keep the paper and you set the paper in place so that the stamp, when closed, will be in the perfect position on your piece of paper. So in my case, I had this circle and I was putting it in place here, and I found that it didn't stay too well. So the other little tip is to always have some repositionable tape, double-sided. I just have some 3M on a roll. So I have my repositionable, and it's not very strong sticky, so it's not something that I worry that is going to do anything nefarious to my die cut. And then I have placed my stamp, and I'm looking for my ink. Here's my ink. This one is going to be inked up with Evening Evergreen. I actually have both of my sentiments placed on either side. You absolutely can use both sides of your plate. These plates come out if you haven't used one, and then the plates can go along in two of the areas. Two sides are allowed to have a plate in place, and then two sides are open. So this way I can very quickly create sentiments on my die cuts by using this extra placement step that I've shown you. And then with the removable tape, I am picking the tape stays in place, and this has popped off and it's ready to go. So that is my tip for consistent placement of your sentiment using die cut pieces. So now let's take, we were provided the wonderful organdy ribbon with more AB little glimmer on it, and I worked on dressing up this card a little bit from what we were provided. So we were provided these pieces, including those pearls, so it was a pretty complete set of items, where last week's card I introduced my own trim. The only trim we were provided was a piece for the outside of the box, which actually didn't go with what my theme was, so I changed it. But this is everything that we were provided, which is great. So I only added a couple of things additional. I have grabbed some Evening Evergreen Glimmer and cut it into strips. It's the easiest way to just add a little bit of bling for very little cost and very little work. I don't want to have to work really hard on these cards because I have to do so many of them. And so they're not going to be my typical over-the-top Avid type cards that I like to make. And then I also took out of the same pack that had the Evening Evergreen, I grabbed the Creamy Very Vanilla, again, an AB, you know, iridescent-y, blingy, neutral color, and I cut out snowflakes. Now these two snowflakes are the same size. We get two of these. They are with the Joyful Flurry. And the third snowflake die does not cut out the snowflake completely. So I had to go in with my scissors and carefully snip out each, in between each of the arms of the snowflake to get all three bits. So I am not sure if I'm going to follow this. This might be too much. It might take too much time because now you have to use mono glue. And I'm going to show you my card. I did on this one where last week's card I did a stamp on the inside and a stamp on the envelope. In this case, I'm going to finish the inside. So this is what an outside looks like. I chose to use the larger opals. I used a line, tucked the organdy trim under, added my bit of Evening Evergreen by snipping in two. You don't even need this much. I would say that you could get away with using half because you just need a very small piece on the right and maybe 1 inch on the left because the circle label covers the rest of it. And then I took a piece of the organdy at maybe 3.5 inches and tied a knot and just added it to the front. So then I'm asking myself on the front, do I want to put the extra effort of adding these snowflakes? I am not sure at this time, but I wanted you to see that if you wanted to dress this up even a little bit more, this is a really nice way that you could dress it up even further. And then even all of these different patterns that I have done my combinations on, I wanted to just show you that the snowflakes are neutral enough that they would be very, very pretty on all of them. So I am definitely leaning toward adding the snowflakes because I just really think that on all of the sample fronts that I was experimenting with, I think they just really finish them off. I like my Avid cards, and I feel that this sentiment, this big white, needs a little more to help it, especially on these darker cards. So I believe I'm going to go ahead and go through the effort of adding the snowflakes to all 10. That'll be 30 snowflakes in total. And then I'll show you what I did on the inside. I went ahead and placed, I did a cutout the size of the outside mat, and then took some leftover of the green stripe, and I just added a little stripe to it. If I wanted to, I could also go in and add a green snowflake. I have the stamp set here with Joyful Flurry, and there is this very cute small snowflake that would be nice. And I could then also add this snowflake and maybe this cluster to the envelope as well, because I haven't really thought through the envelope, and I want to decorate all the front, the inside, and the envelopes for both of the different, the Thanksgiving one and the Christmas one. And again, I am making these to sell. I already have pretty much all of my cards finished for the rest of the winter, and so I will be getting these fixed up and ready to sell at our artisan market. I think that's all I've got. Please let me know your questions, comments, or concerns on this video or over on my blog. I will have all of these supplies over on my blog. Now, some of these supplies, it's getting later in the season, so some of these supplies might be starting to sell out because they do retire at the end of January, the ones that were seasonal do. I will say that this gift bag is from the annual. If you had wondered, I had to look it up and figure out where exactly that came from, and that was the annual catalog. Same with the craft note cards. They're also from the annual catalog. Can't think of anything else. Next week I'm going to go back to doing my individual cards. In fact, next week is a couple of special Santa Express cards that I have completed, and so I can't wait to share those with you. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.